This meeting is
They're still doing
this
construction.
meeting is being recorded.
Okay,
Yep.
go ahead, Chuck.
All right. So as I was saying before the blanking thing came on about the meeting being recorded, I just wanted to say that the Staten Island Railroad southbound platform, the stairway is closed as they work to build an elevator, which is probably the first on the SI. Actually, they're technically at the second. They have something of an elevator over at St. George. So that's the big transit node. So tonight we'll be closing out our membership year with a nice local, it's not a regional program, but a nice local program put on by our bulletin there, George Chiasson. Paul, take it away and you describe it.
Thank you, General Foz. Well, June has become a great tradition for us because that's when we're in the good hands of none other than our editor of the bulletin, Mr. George Chiasson. And this year will obviously be no exception as George takes us along to the center of the United States railway system, Chicago, Illinois. As everyone knows, all the intercontinental lines go through Chicago. And George will be highlighting the very best of this following the Illinois Central.
Let's go get my tan.
This will be part one. We'll be accommodating hopefully a part two and possibly even a part three, because there's so much material on this operation. So tonight, for the most part, we'll be in Chicagoland. And we had a preview last night. Everything was running on all cylinders. And this program will certainly be achieved. No better way to bring out our membership meeting year. The only thing I could say for September is stay tuned. Have a happy and healthy rail fan, fun-filled summer. And we'll look forward to seeing you in September in some form with more RE entertainment.
Oh,
And now, without any further ado,
okay.
yes, Cora?
Yeah,
Yes, I was just going to say, I spent most of the month of May on a transcontinental trip with the NRHS by private railroad car out to California for the NRHS convention. And I'm just saying that I'm putting together a presentation, also probably a two-parter, because part one would have to do with the trip, the transcontinental trip. Part two would have to do with all the activities and museums and things, locomotives and trains that we visited in Los Angeles. So I'd be interested in doing that as either a one-part or a two-parter presentation sometime next year.
Great. Well, we would look forward to accommodating that.
Was that the convention where Walter Zoller got in some trouble?
Yeah, he got mugged. Yeah, apparently somebody, I don't know, he wasn't paying attention to situational awareness, and somebody came up and I guess hit him over the head. I don't know all the details yet.
Wow.
Is he all right?
He's I guess he's okay now.
well,
Because
That was in
his son went
Chicago.
out by plane to bring him home. He was in rehab for, I don't know, a number of days.
Wow. Well, there's a warning. I think even the UN has issued a warning about traveling to American cities.
Well,
I was walking around in Los Angeles, which is my hometown, and I was walking around in my old neighborhood, which is a slightly iffy neighborhood, to say the least. And I encountered lots of homeless encampments and stuff, but nothing happened to me.
place.
I mean, when I
Oh,
say it's an
thankfully.
iffy neighborhood,
Sketchy.
when I was living out there, I left in 1961. Or when did I leave? 1961. And by that time, the drug addicts had taken over. Our house was broken into a number of times.
Really?
And in fact, one guy, it was broken into even while we were home, and one guy came in through the window and my mother hit him over the head and shoved him back out. So I
Oh
had
my
a few
God.
misgivings about going into my old neighborhood, but
I could see that.
my old neighborhood is of interest to rail fans because it is where the old Pacific Electric Tunnel came out, and you can still see the
Oh.
remains of it. And I've got
Excellent.
lots of pictures of that. And
Good.
in its earlier incarnation, when we used to take the subway into town, and in its present incarnation, which is down in a sort of a mysterious pit among a bunch of new buildings. So I got people all interested in it, and they said, "Oh, can you take us out there?" But by that time, of course, the convention had started. So I'm still willing to take people on my own private tour of my old
Wow.
neighborhood.
Well, we will
And there's the
definitely
old-
look forward to your
Yeah,
program.
so I'll show you, I can show you lots of pictures.
Yeah, I got a word from Harvey Lehner out there in LA about Walter. Evidently, he was victimized on what they call the blue line. That's the Long Beach.
Yeah, on the Metro
line
link,
there.
yeah.
So I'm gonna guess
Oh,
it was
it's on the
probably in Watts.
No, it wasn't. It
Wow,
was
I can't
it was
believe
out
he went
towards
to
Santa
Watts.
Monica. He was going out. It was in Brentwood or Santa Monica.
Really?
Oh, he was
Yeah.
on the Expo line. then.
Supposed to be a good area. Well, you could never tell. Things are really bad these days.
ERA will be there week of July 6th for their convention, so
Yes.
maybe, anybody's joining them.
Well, you know what they should do? They should hire private security because they
Yeah.
charge enough for these trips.
Yeah, I don't know if he was at,
Hire
well,
a Pinkerton
he's,
and stuff.
I have waiting for me in my email an account that he wrote of his adventures. So find out more then.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling people to go out and play in the traffic, let's have some
Oh,
security.
yeah, it's really weird because, they say, oh, nobody ever
Someone's
walks
gonna
any
get
place in
killed.
Los Angeles, but they do have, and the traffic goes tremendously fast. So you don't dare
yeah.
just cross where there's no
No.
crosswalk. But when there is a crosswalk, you push the button, it gives you the go ahead to
Right.
walk across, but they only give you 13 seconds. And after
Oh
that,
my God.
yeah, anybody
It's
who was
like the
truly
Road Runner.
disabled would have a problem.
It's like the coyote and the road runner.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Amazing.
we'll definitely look forward to your program, Cora, but tonight
Okay,
I'll
so we
turn
can-
things over.
Schedule that for some time.
Absolutely.
I got a
Oh,
little
you'll
bit
be
of
in October,
current
yeah.
events there that are of interest for you guys. I wasn't at the May meeting. Maybe somebody talked about it already. Did they mention about Shoreline East changing the M8s?
Oh,
I
I learned
wasn't at
about
the
that
May
somehow,
meeting.
another way, yeah.
It went into
just read
effect on
about
May
it.
24th.
Yeah,
I've been out there a couple of times. They're brand new M8s too. They're from a 60 new M8.
So I don't know if they're dedicated M8s or if they're just part of the general pool. The train I saw had 9300s, which looked like standard M8s to me. And
They
they're
took that. They can't
four-car
run.
trains.
They can't run all the way because they got the third rail shoes removed because of clearance in New Haven.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
oh,
So it's a designated group of some kind. Left to-
Yeah.
Okay. I know the last time I looked at Shoreline East was in 2019 before the pandemic. And of course, they were running the Mafursa cars and the GP40H-2s back then. Okay. I think those are probably either in storage or they're used for the line to Springfield, I would guess.
Hartford line, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so one of the question was when I was there in 2019, I had a little back and forth about the platforms because I know at the time they were planning to get M8s extended. It wasn't clear at that time where. It turns out they extended them all the way to New London. Okay, that's number one. That's one thing. The other thing was there was two stations they had a problem. One was Madison because they didn't yet have the land to put a platform on track one, which would be a real problem because it's in the middle of a bog and there's no way to get to it.
Wow.
So
Madison, Connecticut.
So to connect it to track two, they were going to have to build this elaborate overhead with ramps and whatever. There was no
The real
no
station.
way to get to it.
They're all
Yeah,
new
it'd be the real
stations.
station. They didn't want to spend the money.
No, they're all new stations along that line, folks. There's
Right, but
all
the
new
one-
stations along that line. There's
Right,
two
that's
tracks
correct.
coming through.
Yeah. So the other station was Clinton, which they said at the time they were going to be starting construction in a couple of weeks. And sure enough, I got some pictures when I finally asked about it. I think it started in August of 2019. I don't know when it opened, but they did finish.
They're all open now. They've been open for over a year and a half. I'm in Westbrook right now. I'm in Westbrook, Connecticut. So we're
Yeah,
on
nice.
the line. And
Yeah, Clinton opened in on I think like April 2nd or 4th or something.
This year. He said
I'll
it
have to
opened
get
earlier
out
this
there
year.
to see
Yeah.
those
Okay.
new stations.
Okay, so anyway, the way the schedule works, there's no platform on track 1 at Madison. They never built it. I don't even know if they're gonna, because it would be extensively costly. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, what they do is in the morning, the first 4 trips that go west toward New Haven run wrong rail, and they stop on track 2
Hmm,
at Madison.
makes
Okay,
sense.
so they
All
have
the way in.
there's not a lot of Amtrak during that time, so C-Tech can handle it easily. Okay, but for the rest of the day, the westbound trains bypass Madison on track 1. And then they
Yeah.
only use the eastbound stop on track 2 starting at noon for the rest of the day. Okay.
Ah,
And then as I said, and you heard at Clinton, they finished the second platform. So that's expanded. It looks a lot like Old Saybrook in a way. Okay.
oh,
It's,
I
it's,
like the
it's a
Old
huge,
Saybrook.
huge overpass, and they reconfigured the parking lot and everything else. And actually, they're building a whole bunch of, what else would they be doing? They're building a whole bunch of new condos off of track 2 on Clinton. And they redid the Ponds building for the 3rd time, which I think is finally reopened again. Okay, so
Good.
that's going to stay. I don't know if it's residence or office or what in there, but the building is still there. Okay, the old Ponds, the hand cream company.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Pond
So-
Pantry.
Yeah. So anyway, it all started on May 24th, and it seems like it's working fine.
Good.
And that's the big news. So if somebody wants to send a write-up for the newsletter for September, I'll be happy to put it in.
There you go.
I didn't have any media of any kind, and I'm going to try to get some pictures during the summer later on. Okay.
They need a public relations department.
Yeah. So that's all the news I got locally. I'm getting a lot of bloviating, if you will, about East Side access with what
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
service Long Island Railroad's going to offer. Some are
be a
saying it's
big
great,
deal.
some are saying it's lousy. It's all over the place.
Yeah, somebody's ox will be good.
June
Looks
11th,
like Port Washington's gonna be the short end of the stick because they wouldn't allow layup space. They didn't want to give up parking spots.
Well, like I said, I got all kind, opinions all over the place. Depends on whose ox is being gored. Okay.
Yeah.
So
the Port
I would, as
Washington-
usual, leave the final judge to be your friend Larry Penner there and see what he says.
Yeah,
You know what?
Still Larry's
Well,
gonna be
see, this-
weighing in.
Who benefits, who's better off and who's worse off?
Yeah,
Who has- And depending upon how, and ridership habits.
I have a hard time to believe that just about anywhere on Nassau County is now a go destination, don't you think?
mhm,
I mean, the
I
North
think so.
Shore, maybe. The North Shore,
mhm.
yes.
that's probably
Yeah.
growing, but the
Oh,
main
yeah.
line
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the South Shore, I
Uh-huh.
don't see it.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
not gonna get as much business as they thought originally on the reverse commuting.
If it's like everywhere else, the parking lots around the country on commuter rail are still only half full.
Mm.
And they're not getting any much
Yeah.
fuller. I
Well,
don't know if
people
they
still
will.
work from home.
Yeah, that's
At
right.
least partially.
Shoreline East is the same way. Even with the new M8s and everything, the parking at Madison that was there was probably about half
Well,
Yeah,
2019. Okay.
sounds right.
Shoreline East ridership has gone up from 27% pre-pandemic like a month ago to 45, 50
Okay,
now.
so that's half. That sounds right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, well, in Croton, where I live, we have this big vast parking lot, which at the station, which is provides a lot of the income for the village. It's empty. The
Mhm.
park right next to the station is full, but there's a big, huge back lot down by the wetlands. There's no cars in it at all. So that's
Oh my
bad for the
God.
local economy. That's where our tax
Yeah.
money comes from.
Sure.
Anyway, okay, so you ready for the show here? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
okay,
George.
I made you the co-host.
Okay.
You're
Oh, I
ready
am.
to-
Okay. Well, first of all, let
Thank
me introduce, if nobody's ever met before, Mr. John Allen. He's hereby
Hi, John.
You can
special
say hello.
invitation.
Welcome to the
John,
railroad.
used to
Welcome
be
to
a-
the railroad enthusiast.
John used to be a planner with RTA in Chicago. Okay. So,
Excellent.
and he's the reigning expert on Metro Electric, which is what most of the show is today. Okay.
Beautiful.
Basically, what it is, it's a snapshot in time of pretty much the entire system. We'll say between 1990 and 2007, roughly. Okay,
Good.
most of the highliners are still showing their original ICG paint, and they
Wow.
have an RTA logo on them, which of course the RTA never really got involved with the commuter rail as much as they want to before Metro was later created.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a big battle about the formation of RTA in Chicago, and it kind of fizzled at the beginning. Okay, at least to what it started. I don't know. John might be able to talk about that later if it's needed, but
Oh, we'll have a
If it's
discussion
needed, I'll
after the
be happy
program.
to.
he'll be more clear about how things happen. I really don't know. I was just there to take pictures.
We'll have a nice lively discussion after the program.
As
Yeah.
the song goes, I was just the player, the piano player. Right. All right, so let me see what I can get for you here. Hold on.
All
Thank you,
right.
George.
Take it away, George.
You're on share. You got it?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're seeing your screen. All right.
I see your
Okay.
screen.
And there's our show tonight.
Great.
You know it.
Let me get it a little bigger so I can see it better. I'm not sure what we're gonna get for, no, that's not the one I want there.
Maybe I'll unmute everybody and then you'll need to,
Yeah, floating, there we go. Now I can see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is all chapters in
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
It was
okay,
great.
I'm gonna mute everybody and then George, you can unmute.
Okay, except John Allen, okay, please.
Right, yes, right, just
Okay.
John Allen, unmute yourself, and George, unmute yourself.
10-4.
Okay, we can hear you. And George, unmute.
Didn't know I was muted.
Oh, yeah, sure. I announced that you have to, the way Zoom works.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, right, okay.
Anyway, so every chapter is going to show you a map. I rather than try to scan one and spend a big project to put it on a JPEG or a TIFF file, I said online somewhere there must be a Metro Electric map. That's pretty accurate to what they would give you on the schedule. So I checked, and this is what I could find. It was this little boat yard down on the Calumet River in South Chicago. They use a Metro map to show you how to get to their establishment. It works well enough for me. Okay. So you can see this is basically an official map that Metro would have given you on the back of the schedule in that time. Now, I think it's probably the same if it's there at all. And I'm sure like everywhere else, printed schedules are probably gone the way of the dodo bird by now. Okay.
No, actually, they've started reissuing Metro Electric schedules in the previously existing format.
Okay. Do they still have the same map in the back?
It's slightly different and it's on the front, but it's the same.
Okay.
Well, it shows everything the same.
Because this is how the map looked 30 years ago. That's what I
Right.
Okay, so anyway, I'm trying to see if you can you see my pointer here? moving?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so the chapter 1 is gonna go from Chicago down to Kensington. That's actually where the South Shore cuts away this way. It's not on that map, of course. So this is the special map of the South Shore that I did probably 20 years ago now. Okay, and it shows you the milepost and where the South Shore trains will stop on the way, and what the milepost is from Randolph Street to the terminal. Okay. Now, like I was saying, we had a little preview last night, a little practice. And as I mentioned then, I'm not exactly sure where the new bypass is, but they're building a new bypass in Michigan City, which kind of goes something like this. And I'm not exactly sure from where to where. And I think it's still under construction. I don't even think it's open yet. Okay.
They've closed everything for construction. They only let trains through there if they're being pulled by diesel because they've taken down the overhead. But
So how far can they go?
But basically, they're rebuilding everything pretty much in place, and I think they're terminating the trains at Dune Park.
Dune Park. Okay, that makes sense. So anyway, this shows you the system as it was when I took the pictures. Okay. When I was there at the first time, I think it was 90 and 91, I made it to Bendix, which was then the terminal. The South Shore used to continue to downtown South Bend. I think it ended right at the main railway depot in South Bend, which is there, but you can't get to it today. It's kind of up in a high elevation, and the building is there, but you can't get to the tracks. Okay. Bendix was there. It was sort of wandered off into the weeds from there. And I think, if I recall correctly, it was 1992. They rerouted it from, I show Grandview Avenue. That's roughly where the original line cuts off and goes to the South Bend Airport. Okay. I'm not even sure if that's what it's called. But
Bendix station is now Amtrak stop.
Yeah, the Amtrak never left. But
Right,
South Shore is just vacated now. So anyway, and then it just goes to show you each little section of what is what and who runs. So the Metro Electric District is actually what it's called within Metro. Okay. That's kind of an old terminology for the Illinois Central, because when CN took over, they changed everything from district to subdivision. Okay. So it just shows you that it goes from Randolph, formerly Randolph, now known as Millennial, to Kensington, and then it's joined with the South Shore line to Kensington and continued from there to University Park with the Metro Electric. You'll get into that in part 3, actually. Okay.
And Metra is the owner, NYRRE is the tenant.
Right. And then the current terminology for the old Illinois Central, in IC times, it was known as the Chicago District. I still got the timetable for that. I think it's dated 1995. Okay. Anyway, so when CN took over, they just changed the name to Chicago Subdivision. And it runs formally from 16th Street Crossing, which is where there's a tower there where the Metro takes over, and the electric trains go up to Randolph Street. Okay. The through trains, through freights generally don't go that way unless they're going to another railroad to hand off. And Amtrak, of course, goes to Union Station. They take what's called the St. Charles Airline to go a little bit west south of the city, and they back into Union Station. But we'll go into that another time when we get into the main line in part 2. Okay.
And George, let me just point out that Stunkel Road is where the University Park station is, the last stop on Metro Electric.
Yeah, it's kind of a low profile grade crossing.
Very low profile.
And that's where it changes from basically 6 tracks to 1 track. And you got
4 tracks to 1.
If you're there at the right time, I mean, you'll see these electric cars coming up to your nose at the end of the track. There's a bunter there. Okay. And if you turn your turn your face around, if you're there at the right time, you'll see a 200-car freight train coming right at you at 65 miles an hour. Okay, that's the Illinois Central, right? So anyway, when I first visited in August of '86 with some kind of idea what I was doing, except just taking pictures randomly, they had just closed the existing ticket office from the IC. I think this probably dates probably from the 50s or 60s anyway, because I don't know how many times Randolph Station's been rebuilt. And of course, it goes back to, I believe, the 20s anyway, at least, to the electrification. Of course, the site goes back to a depot that started, I think, in the first the 1850s somewhere, but the first terminal was built in 1893 for the Jackson Park exhibition. I don't know if you remember that or not.
The World's Fair.
Yeah, yeah. So this was its successor. Anyway, that had just closed. Okay, there was a door open. I just happened to get a picture of randomly, and then when they saw me taking the picture, they closed the door and literally closed the door on history by doing so. So then this is the new office right next door. It probably had just opened like that week. I have no idea if it's still open or it's still the new ticket office.
It's been superseded by yet a third set of ticket windows at the same spot where you got the picture through the door.
Oh, okay. So they reopened the original office as
the original location. But it looks very different.
Sounds like the Long Island Railroad ticket office in the basement of Penn Station almost.
Good analogy.
Okay. Anyway, so when you go downstairs at Randolph Street, these are just the trains that happen to be there when I showed. I probably wrote them somewhere. Okay, so just getting the shot before I get on. What I liked about the IC Electric or the Metro Electric is that most of the rail environment survived from its original electrification in the 1920s. A lot of it was still there, and this is by this time 60 plus years old. Okay, so it was like a treat for the eyes, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, of course this is under construction, this platform here. I'm sure it's now bright and new and shiny these days, but it was very nostalgic back then. So when you go a little bit further south on Randolph Street, there was a separate set of stairs, a ticket office, and a passageway for the South Shore trains. The IC would go through in those tracks to the right, okay? And then the South Shore stuff was all kind of clustered in a couple of platforms on the side. So when I was there in February of '86, at the time they had a shortage of equipment, and later on they expanded the Nippon Sharyo equipment. Before that, they leased a few push-pull trains from Metra. This particular equipment was from the Milwaukee division, okay? And its original paint scheme, if you'll notice. And this is when they finally modernized or started to modernize the South Shore's platforms in the early 90s.
And George, all of that previous photo you took, all of this photo is now underneath Millennium Park.
Okay. Good thing I got the pictures when I did, huh?
Very good timing.
Okay. Yeah, that's one coming in from Michigan City or somewhere. One of the siding platforms there. That's kind of the afternoon rush hour, ready to take flight, I think is what it is. All I remember about this particular day was very cold. It was early April, and it was opening day of Comiskey Park and the White Sox, and it snowed that day. Typical for Chicago on opening day, okay? So there's a couple of my friends there that they just said, hey, this is a great place to take a picture, you know. We were freezing here, okay? Next stop is Van Buren Street. That's the lobby in 1991. It had just been, or was being rehabbed for the very first time. I don't know how many times it's been done since this. Or I'm sure it's in pretty good shape because they try
It's
to
done
keep,
a second time and it looks very good.
yeah.
It does.
I think the original construction for this, that's also from 1893, correct?
93, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, a lot of random pictures at Van Buren Street. If you notice the date on the caption, that'll tell you when they're taken. They sort of jump around. That's what I was telling you about, had the ICG paint scheme at that time. Metro was a brand new organization. They were the new kids on the block back then. They started running, I think, in 1985, and they superseded
84.
84.
And-
Okay, what little there was of RTA.
Yeah,
That's again, that's a long story.
Yeah, George, just a note about the paint scheme.
Yeah.
The Illinois Central used black and orange. This is brown and orange. That's the RTA Metro paint scheme.
Oh, okay.
Very subtle difference.
Okay. And then this was the Nippon Sharyo cars that, as they came in the factory, I suppose. I'm not sure if they were actually built in Japan or if they were assembled, which is probably what they were doing. I don't know who assembled them. Okay. I know the Nippon Sharyo cars that Cleveland got about the same time, they were assembled somewhere in the United States, and I can't remember exactly where. I used to know.
I think somewhere's in Illinois. Didn't they have a plant? I don't know if they still do.
Could have, yeah. Anyway, so these went to
Rochelle,
the
maybe?
South Shore. What's that?
For some reason, Rochelle, Illinois comes to mind.
Could
I
be.
could very
I
well.
believe you're correct. I passed it by once going out to Rochelle Park,
Mhm.
do some rail fanning.
Okay. So here we are in 1991. Like I said, they're doing some upgrading at Van Buren Street. Okay. Gives you the difference between the original shelter and the modernized shelter, for what it's worth. But I prefer the old stuff, but even the wooden, the plank platforms.
Amen to that.
It's great nostalgia, it really is. And they work just
It
as well as the slabs do, if not better, because they're cheaper to take care of. Okay. And a lot more flexible. These are a couple of extra shots near the same place from Eric Zustowitz.
And by the way, the furthest north you can take pictures of the railroad out in the open is Monroe Street.
Okay. Wow. So
Just in case anybody's planning a visit.
I didn't have a date. I didn't even look at the pictures really, but I was wondering when they had the last highliner with the orange and brown there. And this picture's taken in November 2005. And you'll notice there's one coach that has the original paint scheme. I wonder if that might be the last one or close to it by then. Okay.
Probably. Now, you realize they stopped the rebuilding program when they realized that the rebuilding process was not stopping the Corten steel bodies.
Corrosion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Underlying corrosion. I think that's what they called it. Yes. It's actually tragic, but
It is.
anyway. So the next stop is Roosevelt. That pretty much looked the same as it did from the electrification in the 20s. Okay.
It was marvelous while it lasted.
Yeah.
It's now been rebuilt into a very modern station with elevators and slabs.
I bet. And I just show them in the sequence they were taken. I didn't try to, show whatever it was. It's just the way it was taken. As it came from nature, as they say. Okay. I'm not sure. What was that construction on the right-hand side? It's something that they were starting to build or what? Any idea?
Oh God, yes, it's high-rise apartments there where all of that
Oh,
stuff
what a
is.
surprise.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Yeah.
I had trouble recognizing it because I'm so used to the high rises.
So this is the next stop down at 18th Street. I guess that's probably the same thing, more residence construction. or something.
Yeah, there is, but not as close to the tracks.
Okay.
What you see on the right in this picture is they were starting to build an accessible ramp to take pedestrians up and over between the lakefront and the neighborhood to the west.
Ah, okay. So you see one of each train going by, okay? Looking one each way. And then you went, you come out of 23rd Street between 18th and 23rd, you go under the McCormick Place. That tunnel's been there, I think, since the 1960s. But the original platform was incorporated into it, okay? So I had my car and I didn't have a place to park. And in those days, you used to have the Metra stored fare cards there to get into the station. So I just took a picture of the station of the train going to and from 23rd Station. You can see it in the background. You look one each way, you can see the two stations, okay?
And by the way, the wooden platforms are long gone. It's now concrete, long enough for 6 cars.
Okay. And looking south, that's 27th Street.
And
Way down.
the buildings you see on the right in this picture, Michael Reese Hospital, that's been gone for about 15 years now.
Wow.
And the McCormick Inn you see here, the hotel, that's gone. It made way for more exhibition space.
Wow. So they're very old pictures, huh?
I wouldn't say they're very old. They're just
Somewhat old.
historically interesting.
Okay. Anyway, so that's 27th Street Station. Now with the Metro Electric and IC before that, the way they run this thing, the local trains generally, the ones that
Always
go
on the
to South
inside.
Chicago and Blue Island run on the local tracks.
On
And
the
then
inside,
the through trains to University Park are on the express trains with the South Shore.
on
Okay.
the outside.
Yeah, it's kind of like the CTA on the north side in a lot of ways. Okay.
Yeah, very much like the CTA between Wilson and Howard.
Yeah. So this is down at 47th. I don't know if there was any stations in between that were taken out
There
of it. or something.
used to be, let's see, there used to be 31st, 35th, 39th, 43rd. 43rd was half a block away from the end of the Kenwood L up
Mhm.
until that line was closed in 1957. And I
Okay.
think the last of those intermediate stations closed in 1962.
Okay, yeah, because there was no
I was
sign
only
of them
5
out.
years old at the time.
Okay. And now we're starting to get into the edge of Hyde Park, I believe.
hmm
And of course, again, the platforms are generally, well, they were generally in original configuration. This is a latter day. I got to 51st Street, which I think technically is Hyde Park. Is that right?
Yeah. Now,
And this had just opened. These sets of new platforms had just opened at this point.
yeah. Now, well, this is the only station on the IC Electric that was built on a curve,
Okay.
which makes it kind of visually interesting.
And it's
The
got, it's,
drawback, of course, is that you can't see anything coming until it's almost upon you.
it's got a period steel framing on the canopy.
Oh, yes, so it does.
By that time, the nostalgia wave at structure construction was already going. Okay.
Yeah.
That began in the late 1970s originally. Okay. Not in Chicago, but around the industry. So if you had something to preserve, after that, they tried to start kind of preserving it, or at least letting you know it was interesting earlier. You know?
Now, this is the station I use, 55th, 56th, 57th. And shortly after I moved back to Chicago from a few decades out east, they were slowly, painstakingly replacing the wood with concrete slabs. They closed half of it at a time to do the rebuilding. It was great fun to watch it and document it all.
I see. So now the kids with their mother, were they coming from some kind of a museum nearby?
Let's see. This is a southbound train,
Yeah.
so
So they're probably going home to the suburbs from wherever they were.
yeah, they're probably going home to the suburbs, and they're coming from the Museum of Science and Industry,
There you go.
which for many decades used to be Chicago's single biggest tourist attraction. And here you've got a northbound South Shore train, and you can tell it's a weekend because it's running on the inner track. They run on the inner track on weekends so as to serve McCormick Place. On weekdays, they run on the outside.
Actually, I think the day it was taken, it was a Friday midday.
Oh, okay.
They might have had track construction.
All right. Yeah, that often happens.
Yeah. And it's in the summer. That's when they do all the usual thing like
Right,
everybody does.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So that's the one picture I have of the original equipment. I didn't take this. It just mistakenly shows it as DGC, which is me. It should say EJM, which is Ed J. McKernan. If you know him, he's still around. Very prolific photography, and he's been at New York City Transit now for 40 years, I believe. I don't know. Could be getting ready to retire sometime soon. Anyway, he traveled all over the country, and he'd find the darndest pictures in the darndest places at the darndest time. So this is one of the last, I guess, one of the latter period for the original equipment. Their last trip was when? Early 79, was it?
Yeah, early 79. And the orange decal on the front dates it from after the 1973 crash at 27th Street.
Mm-hmm.
You may or may not recall that something on the order of 45 people died when a Highliner, the engineer was speeding, overshot 27th Street, backed up without receiving full authorization, and the following train with the old green cars, that engineer was also speeding, and he came around the curve at 35th Street northbound. He had a clear signal, but then the offending Highliners backed into the block that the signal indication showed that engineer that the preceding train had vacated. Anyway, all of this came out in the investigation, and there was plenty of blame to go around.
And the Highliner lost the collision, if I recall correctly.
The Highliner, what practically the entire rear half of the Highliner was demolished, and almost all of the deaths were in that part of the train.
So really, ICG, RTA, whoever their owners were, they never really trusted the Highliners after that. Okay,
They
they
never
didn't expect
did.
this when it happened.
But they should have been they really should have, and I think they were even less trustworthy of the lax safety culture.
Yeah.
So ever since then, they've been pretty strict about getting permission before backing up on the main line.
Okay. Well, anyway, consider continuing our trip down time here. This is 59th Street, August 1990. I think that's that Friday afternoon. Okay.
Mm.
Now, this is taken from the window of a train I'm riding, because you could get all the way to the front door to take pictures. And actually, somewhere in my collection here, I've got a video I took from University Park all the way to Randolph Street. I actually kind of forgot about it, but you can do that on the Highliner very easily. Okay.
Now, well, just a historic note, on the original Highliners, you could do this freely for a long time, but at some point, maybe the 1990s, Metra prohibited having riders up in the front vestibule.
Okay.
So your timing was very good, George.
Okay. And if you'll notice, this is the station at 63rd Street, which I think was closed not too long after these were taken, okay? 63rd Street used to be a principal interchange station. It was a very busy station. But-
63rd is still open. It's 67th that I think.
Okay, but anyway, the neighborhood really fell apart after the 60s.
Yeah.
And so did the ridership, really, okay? For local. That's taken from the old CTA, which was about to cross over the IC Electric to go to Jackson Park, the original Jackson Park terminal. That closed, I gotta say, maybe 1983 or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, George, your timing was excellent. CTA detected flaws in the structure of the bridge, taking their line across the IC, and then they truncated it one station west at University. By the way, that big honking building you see is long gone. It used to be the IC's back offices for accounting and stuff like that.
Ah. So still at 63rd Street, this is the way the city of New Orleans looked in August of 1987, which is how many years ago now? 35 years ago? Okay, to me, it still looks like this mentally. This is the way I knew it, okay?
It's all superliners now, of
Oh,
course.
you'll see different pictures of it, but this is the way to me, this is the way it should look. Okay. This is actually going through 67th Street. I was actually on the train at it was stopping at 67th, okay? And that's a shoreline
South Shore.
yeah, South Shore train going on the other side. So that's part of the 67th Street station that was closed in early 90s or something. And that's where the South Chicago branch cuts off. Okay. But you can't really get to the bell mouths. That's 75th Street, the next station.
And what you see overhead is the Chicago Skyway. Immediately beyond that, you've got the Pennsylvania Railroad and the New York Central.
Okay. So things start to open up from the railroad south of here. And you can see straight miles of track for, straight track for miles and miles and miles ahead.
Actually, you can see straight for miles ahead as close in as 57th Street.
And at night, you'll see a headlight, that eventually will reach you. You can see it for a good 10 or 15 minutes by the time it hits you.
Oh, yeah. Now, just to point, George, hold that for a sec, would you please? I just need to point out something here. That is the long abandoned nickel plate coming overhead. The nickel plate used to come off the New York Central just before the New York Central crossed over the IC. The nickel plate would dip down, cross under the Central, under the Pennsy, paralleling the IC on the IC's west side. Then at 79th Street, it would come up and over, flip onto the east side of the IC before meandering off its own way.
Okay.
And this is the, I believe it's the only abandoned railroad viaduct over the Illinois Central Electric.
Okay, to move on?
Move on, please.
Okay.
That's just looking the other way, basically. And there's a more modern city of New Orleans. It always happens to go by and generally the same time every day. So it depended on when I was there, okay? But it would pass me somewhere along the way. That's 83rd Street there. Now the platforms, if you notice, they're already cut back here, okay? And then later on, I was there in the early 2000s, they cut them back again because they usually they cut it down to 2 cars, right?
And 83rd is the only place on the railroad where instead of the concrete balustrades, you've got a metal balustrade on the overhead crossing of the street down below.
Oops, I think I missed one. There we go. There's that the express train is going down to University Park. And then, of course, freight trains will wander by. This time, Wisconsin Central was an independent company. There was no notion at all of Canadian National joining coming into the United States. That's the SD-45 fleet that they were famous for. Oh, in the late 80s and early 90s. 87th Street. To get these pictures in 2003, I think John came with me, and we had to keep calling the IC dispatch phone to tell them where we were, and he'd let us in the gates to take the pictures.
Yeah, the gent at Metro headquarters, he's long since retired, but I explained to him what George and I had in mind, and he just gave the order for the folks at the call for aid phone office downtown to just let us in and out as we came and went.
And they had cameras everywhere. You could see them coming in anyway, if I remember right.
Right, yeah.
And it was Chris Napton, wasn't that his name?
No, this was John Gottlieb. Chris, unfortunately, was long gone by the time we lined this up.
All right. Just random power drifting by there in 2003. CN, of course, by that time taking things over. And the South Shore cars are already, they're still in their original paint scheme here. They're about 20 years old by this time.
And George, you'll notice the RTA logo on the on what would on a long distance train be the drumhead sign. This is one of, I think, 10 cars that Illinois rather than Indiana paid for.
Wow.
As part of the arrangements, because about wait, no, maybe it was more like 6 cars, but anyway, it was proportional to the ridership from Hegwish, which is on the southeast side of the city.
All right.
And let's see, this is 91st Street. 2 blocks away at 93rd Street, you've got the overhead crossing of the Belt Railway of Chicago.
Okay. You might see it right there, I think.
Yeah, you do, even better.
Okay.
And now in this picture, you see the overhead wire structure, and you'll notice there's a thick wire running through the middle of it. This was not yet a substation. This was a tie station located between substations. And
so it's an it's an industrial extension cord.
Yeah, basically it's an extension cord. And back then the place was the location of a section insulator. Now that section insulator has been turned into a substation because they need more power.
Yeah,
now you've got an excellent view of the extension cord.
Yeah, the south side is actually it's an interesting place to visit as long as you try to do it from a distance. Okay, there's a lot going on there, but it's not a dangerous place per se. It's very colorful, and I don't mean that the way you might think. It is a very interesting place. It's also full of often has food cooking. You can smell it all over the place of all different kinds and everything. It's a great place to spend a day, especially, like I said, in those days when you're doing it in the 1920s aura. It was really an enjoyable day. Okay. On a hot summer day in Chicago, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we had a whole lot of fun together.
Yeah.
Now, there's never been a 107th Street station on the IC's main line, Where that station would be is Interstate 94 coming underneath the railroad.
Now, the motive power in this one, this is a latter day CN train when they had just taken over IC probably 2 years before, okay? And actually, this is power that the CN bought. It was surplus from the Conrail breakup from 1999. They used to be leasers that Conrail would use on a seasonal basis from GE. And nobody needed them anymore, so IC took them and they slapped those markings on them, but you can tell by the color, it's definitely a Conrail C40-8W, and I probably used to have the old number for it. Okay. And that's what's left of the platform in the middle. They were starting, at this point, they had shortened the platform. That's what I was talking about. So they just kind of threw it away. But whatever, nobody cared, you know. I don't know what the ridership would be in a place like 103rd Street. I can't imagine it's that strong. It must be strong enough to justify it, but it's probably not that large. Okay.
Well, at several of these stations, it's not quite strong enough to really justify it, but it's strong enough so that if Metro tried to close it, there would be quite a squawk.
I imagine so. Yeah. And I love the name Rosemore. You know. So this is 107th Street itself. You notice that the housing now has gone into a sort of a 1950s, 1960s era architecture now.
Yeah, it's mostly bungalows.
We're getting
here.
down towards suburbia here. Or at least the previously undeveloped tracts, okay? That was really the last station I needed pictures at, I believe. Thanks to, well, no, that was the 2007 trip. That was the very last one I did.
And by then you didn't need to get through any turnstiles.
I don't think there were gates left. No, they were gone.
No, there weren't.
Yeah. So that's in 2007. There's your city of New Orleans as it looked
Looks very much like that
20
today.
years later from the first picture. And that's what I say. That's why to me, it's like a stump today, what it used to be, you know?
Yeah.
Now, conversely, I happened to be down at Pullman. That was when I was working at CTA, and somebody said, go down and look at the Pullman Standard plant because you'll find what's left of some R46s down there, which I didn't scan. I probably should have. I didn't think of it. But they had just finished building the R46s, the very last ones, and they had some part-built car bodies for the R46s around the platform, the plant at that point. So I got pictures of that, and I had a look at the old Pullman hotel. And these were going by when I was waiting for the Highliner to go back to Chicago. Okay, it's the only time I ever saw the old cars myself. There's the hotel on the right side there. I believe that burned down probably in the 1990s.
Not the hotel. It was the factory, which they've rebuilt and turned into a museum.
Okay. And where is the current CRCC platform in relation to Pullman Standard? Is it anywhere near there?
I have no idea.
That's where they're building the 7000 series
Somewhere
CTA
not
rapid transit.
far from there.
Okay. Anyway. So we roll into Kensington at long last.
And now it's slab platforms with an elevator. Oh yeah, like this.
That's where the South Shore Line has its last stop before it turns east.
Used to have its last stop. The South Shore no longer stops at Kensington.
Really?
They've got a new northbound track that sort of bypasses the platform.
Oh. So how far south do they stop now? Or do they stop at all?
the last stop is 63rd Street, and that is only a very few trains a day.
Oh.
Most trains, the last stop is 55th, 6th, 7th.
Wow. I guess there wasn't much traffic between Kensington
There
and
was.
Indiana.
Kensington and Indiana.
So I'm not sure what the relationship was with the SP and the IC. Okay. But this might be related to the Alton in some way or other, because the Illinois Central, the Alton became part of the Illinois Central
The
conglomerate.
Alton was part of the GM&O. The GM&O merged with the IC.
Okay. So I'm not sure, what it looks like it's a steel train to me. It might be wandering its way to start going towards St. Louis. That's a guess, but I really don't know.
How, if you were trying to get from St. Louis, you'd be coming over the GM&O, crossing the St. Charles airline, and then coming south onto the IC. So
Okay.
if St. Louis is part of this run, he's coming from St. Louis.
And heading to the south somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Or more likely heading somewhere onto the South Shore.
Okay. And this is a 1990 version of the City of New Orleans. And you'll notice the second unit is a GP 40TC.
Wow.
Which Amtrak bought from Go, I think, probably in the mid 1980s, maybe.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. They used them as boosters because they didn't have enough F40s to go around. Okay. And that's the end of that chapter 1. Okay. So if you just give me a second now, I got to. I'm going to stop it and then I'll go back to it. Okay, just a second. Come on. Didn't. Trying to end the old show here. I don't understand this. Hold on a second. Always technical glitches. End of show. Okay. Click to exit. There we go. Okay. There's part 2. Okay, where are we here? You guys back on with me, or what are you doing here?
Well, we're just enjoying.
Are you sharing the screen right now?
No, we're getting a marvelous view of you.
But no, there's no screen share.
And the screen is reflecting full blast at your glasses.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Trying to find the, I can't find the screen. Oh, there it is. Ah, there we are. Okay, share screen. Try again.
Okay, select what you want to show.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there. It started screen share.
Yeah. Yeah, the
On the
screen
chat.
is up now.
Chapter 2. There we go. Thanks for the patience. From beginning. Got it. There we are. So that's the same map I showed you in chapter 1 for the South Shore. Okay. I don't know if there's any way to get pictures where the actual junction is. I really didn't look. And if there were, it'd probably be difficult with a car. You got to park and you're walking in the bogs, I suspect, because the South Shore basically goes down to ground level. Okay. And the Northern Indiana Commuter
Transportation District,
Yes.
pronounced NICT.
A very flowery name that was founded in 1981, something like that.
Sounds about right.
It's the Indiana subsidized version of the South Shore Line when they changed from a private company to a publicly subsidized agency, I guess you'd say.
Mhm. And George, let me just point out the interesting patterns of ownership. You have Metro Electric, which is wholly owned by Metro. You have the Indiana portion of the South Shore Line, which is wholly owned by NYRRE. But South Shore Freight owns the railroad between Kensington and the state line. Everything, though, is dispatched by NYRRE from Carroll Avenue shops on the east side of Michigan City.
Okay. So
Back to
the
you.
NYRRE is Michigan City.
Yeah,
Okay. So pretty simple stuff. This is the station at Hegwish. It's in Illinois. And you could probably easily throw a football between here into the state of Indiana. It's very close, okay? And of course, the local rail fans tend to call it not Hegwish, but what? Hogwash. That's just basically an interior of a standard train in the summer of 1986. These cars back then were no more than 3 years old. I'm sure they've been rebuilt and rehabbed and
They
everything
have.
else. God knows how many times since this. Okay, and you can
I
see
think it was.
you can see about 6 to 10 bored Indiana natives there trying to figure out, why am I here? You know, this is at a location right at the state line called Burnham. B-U-R-N-H-A-N.
BURNHAN.
Yeah, it's actually the exit or the start for the old nickel plate that goes eventually to Buffalo, New York. So actually what I was doing, I was waiting for a freight train to come by, but I couldn't get the two of them in the same frame. I had to take them separately. So that's your South Shore view from the side on there. I didn't put the NS train in there. I didn't think of it. I probably should have. It just looks like an NS train. You can't really notice anything unusual in the background. So we get into Hammond, Indiana. What's the nickname of the state of Indiana?
Hoosier State.
The Hoosier State. Home of the Hoosier Traction Meet. Or at least it used to be in Indianapolis. Now, again, I'm going to assume that most of what we're seeing is still there, but I really don't know.
Well, it is there, but it's now high platforms.
Oh, it's further a
High
little down.
platforms with a gauntlet track.
Okay. So the new station is
thing
kind of
as-
here, sort of where this is, but there's high platforms there now.
Yeah,
Okay. And a big platform, a big parking lot, right?
big parking lot.
That's right. Okay.
Now,
And then this
East
was a relocation from, was it the mid 1950s?
1956, they opened the East Chicago bypass paralleling the Indiana Toll Road. The South Shore Line already owned the right-of-way. They wanted to get out of the East Chicago street running, so they struck a deal with the tollway. The tollway agreed to provide them with a graded right-of-way on the land that the railroad owned. In return, the railroad let them build, surprise, surprise, a toll highway.
Okay. And then this is east of there where it comes back down to level ground, I believe. That's
Mhm.
the tollway to the right, correct?
Correct.
Back on the original right of way. You can kind of tell where it was original by the simple little shelters there. There's all the way across Indiana with a simple station. Just required a paint a coat of paint now and then. That was it. Now,
And that's the bridge over the Pennsylvania Railroad in the background.
now wasn't this where they had some kind of a collision here?
Yeah. They used to have a gauntlet track, and that's why the collision happened. Somebody was where he shouldn't have been.
How bad?
Yeah.
This is at Metro again. I think that's a relocation from.
Yeah, Gary Metro Center is located ever so slightly to the south of where the alignment used to be. The alignment used to be right up against the Indiana Toll Road,
Okay. And this was
and
open
it was
when?
street level.
How old is this?
Okay, this let's see. Okay, this I think was only a few years old when you took this photo.
Late 70s, maybe, something like that.
No, it was sometime during the 80s, probably the late 80s when they built Gary.
Oh, it was
Metro.
brand new.
Brand new.
Okay, once again, back on the original alignment with the Insel era catenary towers there.
Yeah. Now, now I should just point out that the South Shore Line has been doing something that Metro Electric has not, and that is they've been switching over to constant tension catenary with counterweights about a mile apart.
Okay.
And one unfortunate consequence is that NYRRE has torn down these marvelous Insel era overhead wire support structures and replaced them with the rather flimsy looking.
So again, it's a good thing I got the pictures when I did. You notice the little Plymouth here. If you do remember the Plymouth, that's
a K
been
car.
on now forever. Anyway, with the Massachusetts plate, that was my vehicle of choice. Driving all the way from here to Chicago and all over the place when I was there. Okay. This is what they call the ideal section. Is this still around, or is the ideal section no longer ideal? If they took down the catenary towers, that would mean it's no longer an ideal section. Burns Harbor was not a station. I don't know that it ever was. There was a grade crossing here that was joint with the old, well, actually today it's Norfolk Southern. Then it was Conrail, the old New York Central Chicago line. So I was waiting for freight trains, and while I was waiting, once and then again, a South Shore train would drift by, okay? I probably should have put Conrail pictures here. Again, I didn't think of it. That'll be another story for another time. And there's your Dune Park, which is where the train's in right now. Dune Park, I believe. Are you with us, John? John?
Wait, let me look at participants and see if wait, let me look at who's, oh, yeah, John Allen is still with us.
Yeah.
He's still a participant.
Maybe he went to sleep.
Maybe he stepped away for some refreshments.
Maybe he froze. Anyway, like I say, they're all pretty much self-captioned. Now, Beverly Shores, I know that's no longer an active station. The building has become a restaurant. It survives, but no longer any passenger service there. Hold on. It's funny with John. So anyway, going west, when you enter Michigan City at the intersection of 10th and Huron, there's a grade crossing there with the what used to be the New York Central, owned by Conrail, but at this time was only used by Amtrak. It wasn't really used by freight trains except for the Canadian Pacific, believe it or not, with trackage rights, okay? So at this diamond, which of course I believe is no longer with us, This is the International, the former Via Amtrak joint Via train. One day it would use a Via train, the next day it would use an Amtrak train between Toronto, Chicago and Toronto. Okay. So that's actually coming east toward Toronto. And at the same crossing, that's the South Shore train going east toward Michigan City. Okay. And then it gets on the street. This is the portion that's gone now. Okay. Now, like I say, for some reason, John seems to have frozen. An idea maybe is to shut him down and see if he wants to come back in. If he can, okay? Either of us could do that.
Yeah, we can. Let me see if it's if
It's like he froze. He's probably going crazy in New Haven there trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
let me look at. Okay, I'm on full screen. Let me look at view options. Zoom ratio.
He might have lost his broadband, you know?
Maybe that's it because John, are you there? Let me send him a message
Okay.
through the chat.
Whoops. Skip
That-
ahead through here. Okay, anyway. This was the Michigan City passenger station in the middle of 11th Street in Washington. It was in service until the past winter. The actual building is over here behind the train. The white stone building. And this was a rather intriguing S-curve at the easterly end of the street running. It was even more intriguing with it had just finished having a thunderstorm, a nice Midwest thunderstorm. Michigan City's is where the passenger station for Michigan City is. It's a little bit complicated. Well, at least at this time, it was just it came down this private right of way, past the shop, and it just went to a little platform in the middle of the shop property. It was hard in a way to tell where the station was and where the shops were. Okay. I don't know if this is anything like this now. I can't imagine you'd have such open access today that you would have had back then. Then you get into the rural section of the route between Michigan City and South Bend. There's all your Midwest corn right there. See how far that field goes? That's probably, I'll bet you close to a mile away there. A flat Midwest. Milepost 22. Bircham Station is gone. Most of these stations were closed in the early 2000s. They probably had again a ridership of maybe 10 to 15 people per day. Okay, if that. And there's one of your passengers there with the last train of the day. Somebody's coming out from Chicago. This was a pretty nice little town we stayed at. We went to breakfast there, and it was one of the best meals we had of the whole trip. And it was right next to, right to the Chicago line for Conrail as well. And again, New Carlisle Station is long gone now. This is Leidick. And really, you're just on the final approach to South Bend. That's Grand Avenue. This is the New York Central next to it. Conrail, New York Central, whatever. That's Bendix. it just sort of trailed off into the weeds here, and that was that. This is the depot building here. Okay. So that's when I was there, was 1990. And like I said, at this point, the right of way to the airport was already under construction. So I got a couple of gratuitous pictures at the airport many years later on. Not much to look at really, and not much to see. It's extremely uninteresting compared to what the rest of the line used to look like. Okay. And that's it for page 2.
All righty.
So they get generally shorter as we go here. So this is part 3. Again, the same map. This is going to continue from Kensington down to University Park. Actually, I think your first location is going to be Riverdale, which is 137th Street. Okay. And Metro Electric south portion is the same as the north portion. It's, well, it says shared as far as Kensington. We saw that already. And the Chicago subdivision of CN south of Kensington, it's only the IC Electric or the Metro Electric. South Shore is gone for the whole show now, really. So all you're going to see are Highliners and freight trains and a few Amtraks here and there. That's pretty much it. But it's still the original facilities from the 1920s. That made up for a lot. That's a road train because the IC was one of the few class 1s trains, one of the class 1 railroads that would tend to run a locomotive long hood forward. Some of them, a few of them did. A lot of engineers or some engineers preferred it that way. Okay. That's at Harvey, Illinois. Hazel, we actually stayed at the Hazel Crest Super 8 in 1990 for 9 nights, as we did everything we could think of in the ground Chicago. The IHB, the community of Calumet, another old road freight with a GP10 of all things. That was a rebuilt, probably done by Conrail, I think, in Pennsylvania under contract, or it could have been done at Paducah. They had a big shop at Paducah. Quite a sequence at Homewood. That was really the only place where you could see Amtrak and Metra sharing the location with separate platforms. Okay, and a local and the roadside there gives you a good look at the right of way. Okay. They have a railfan park there at Homewood. They put there probably 2006. As far as I know, it's still there. And it's still pretty busy. Okay. This was during a flood in the summer of 1993. The Santa Fe line was underwater, going east or going just west of Joliet. So they had to reroute off the EJ&E, I believe, and then come up the IC to get to Chicago. Very circumferential. And this is not the city of New Orleans. I think it was called the, what's the, Carbondale, the train to Carbondale. I can't remember the name of it offhand. The Illini, used to be called the Illini. And that's a park that was put next to the station in Homewood when they put the railfan park there, okay? And this is a picture of a freight train going south, starting for wherever, probably Memphis, and this is going by the railfan park. September 22nd, 2007. So it was fairly brand new back then. Single tracking at Flossmoor. And Olympia Fields, now it was much better pictures from outside the platform than on the platform. Okay. Great sun angles here.
Yeah, that it is.
211th, I think, is the second last stop. Or is it? No. It's just a modernized overhead is what it is there. Might have been an added station, I think, see, they did a little bit of extension and modernization in the late 70s. I think it was 1977. So I think this was a station they added at the time. Okay, probably a big platform, parking field there. Okay. Yeah, because Madison was an original station, or Matson as they call it. There's your Illini again in a different era, probably several years before the other picture. Pretty soon, all the equipment that's in this picture are going to be retired finally. It's only taken forever. Richton Park was the original terminal for the electric district. Went that far in 1926. Okay. And then they extended it from Richton Park to University Park in, I think, the end of 1977. You notice it's got the modern overhead supports and stuff like that. And then the Stunkel Road grade crossing is just south of here, right behind this train. You see it's parked here. That's in the tail. That's the end of the electric district right here. You see that gantry there? That's it. The grade crossing is right behind the tree. And over here, you've got two tracks that come to one, and they go across Stunkel Road, and the Illinois Central will start there and eventually head to New Orleans. So we'll continue with that at part 2, and even if part 3, it has to be in the future. Okay. So then we're going to move into chapter 4. Very short. This is just going to be the South Chicago branch from, well, it leaves at 67th Street. There's a Bellmouth, but like I said, I don't think you can really take pictures there. I went to Stony Island, which is where the first station was. Okay, and it's known as the Metra Electric District, the South Chicago branch of the Metra Electric District. Okay, just a Metra. It's a Metra nomenclature. So this is actually in, I believe it's 71st Street is what it's running in. It's just coming off the main line and making sort of that swerve into the middle of 71st Street. And there's your Stony Island platform. These were all installed, I believe, at the same time as the main line when it was electrified in 1926. Similar facilities, and like I said, very well kept. Great for photography at the end of its life, okay? That's Stony Island Avenue. Believe it or not, until I think it was 1954 or 55, there was a CTA streetcar line from Stony Island Avenue that used to cross this on a quad crossing. In other words, it was 4 diamond crossings in succession. Imagine the noise on either vehicle. Okay, and they had some kind of a rig where they had to get the trolley wire and the IC wire so they wouldn't hit each other. If John were here, he could probably tell you more about it than I can, but I did see a picture of it once. Okay, it's too bad John kind of died off.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't respond to my chat.
Yeah, well, he doesn't, I don't know if he has a smartphone even, okay? And I don't have his phone number. I only have his email address.
Let
So,
me see if I can see just sometimes it may, when you see him, so in the name, it mentions what type of device he has. In his case, it doesn't. It's just John G. Allen.
Like I said, he could have lost his broadband. I'll be happy to show him the rest of the show at another time, but unfortunately, you guys won't be here. You know? Anyway, so that's Bryn Mawr. Now this is 2003, and here we are. We're still in the original facilities here. They're now at this point almost 80 years old. Okay. And the neighborhood, of course, isn't the greatest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does anybody that's here, have they ridden this branch, the South Chicago branch? A question?
No.
Nobody? Well, anyway, it swerves off of 71st Street onto, I think it's Commercial Street or something like that. South Shore Station. This is a school, literally right next to a school. The term photobomb wasn't known at this time. Whoever he is, he's 32 years older now. I wonder what he looks like, huh? If anybody knows Mike Schiffer from MTA, Mike's wife, Mary Ann, grew up right at this station here in the South Chicago branch. And which is funny because he's from way off in the northwest part of Chicago. They probably grew up about 10 to 15 miles apart and didn't even know each other. It's amazing how they met, you know. Just goes to show, you never know. Anyway, this is the station at 91st Street. It was the original terminus at South Chicago. Then they got a federal grant for redevelopment. They extended this 2 blocks to the south at 93rd Street into what used to be a steel plant property. Okay. So this is when I saw it in 1986, the original terminal. And for some reason, they had some kind of a local freight move there. That could have been related to the steel plant, which may have still have been open in 1986. It was sure wasn't in 1995, 93, whenever it was. This is the new terminal here. And that's the Chicago Skyway in the background there, in the distant background. And that's it for part 4. And then we'll move on to the 5th and final chapter.
Okay.
There's your same map. So now we're going to go from Kensington, where once again it goes to the ground. And it's like a little interurban line to Blue Island. It's a really, I mean, photographically, it's worth the time. Okay. Very simple. Mainly single track. And most of it's like pretty much right in the middle of the city, but you wouldn't think of it. Okay. It reminds me of the rural South in a lot of ways, or very much like Indiana. Okay. It's so much more Midwest than Chicago. It's not even funny. And this also has its original platform facilities from the 1920s. Okay. I mean, this could be in Tennessee somewhere from what you see, okay? So I can't imagine that they've had electric trains in Tennessee. That's the station at West Pullman. As you can tell, at one point they had a stairway. They took this out. That was when they put the electric gates in there in I think the electric gates were installed about 1965. So they took this entrance out and they had one entrance at one end. Okay, they made you walk around on the street. Now, the interesting thing is looking the other way, this property here was just rubble at this time. This is 1991. It had been torn down probably a year or two before. That was the major or the main plant for Dutch Boy paints. You familiar with Dutch Boy paints? Around the
Yeah.
country? That was where they made them all, okay? There was hundreds and hundreds of employees there, and the whole place was just gone. So that's one reason the station was there with no paint factory. I don't think the rail ridership was very strong either. The fencing gives you sort of a hint here of why it was rather important to guard the Visifair gate. Okay, you had one Visifair gate. So like I say, it's survivable, but it wasn't a great neighborhood. Ashland Avenue, same thing. I can't tell if that VW is abandoned or just parked. Could be either one, who knows? I got soaked at Burr Oak. There was a big thunderstorm there. So
Yeah.
when I took the pic, when the train came by, the thunderstorm had just passed, and I was there with my camera and stuff like that. I was soaking wet taking the pictures. That was the train. I rode that down from Randolph Street, and then I rode back as far as, no, I walked back to Burr Oak. That's how I got wet. Anyway, this is the last stop at Blue Island. There's another metro station from the Rock Island district that's in the same general vicinity, okay? That's where most people ride to, but the Blue Island branch does get some patronage from Metro. And that, I believe, is the end of the show.
Okay. If everyone is free to unmute yourself, have any comments, questions?
Yeah, very interesting. I was just in
Yeah, very
Chicago, a few weeks ago, and I was over there, visited Millennium Park and got some pictures at Monroe Street of where the remaining rail lines come out. That all used to be a huge, big Illinois Central yards in the 1890s. And as I put in the chat box, down at Roosevelt Road, that was where the IC headquarters actually were. There was a beautiful big station. I don't know if you know that building. It had a big tower on it. And the reason I know about that is that my grandfather, when he worked for the Illinois Central in the 1890s, he had an office up in the tower where they,
Wow. And you were there?
Yeah, well, I was taking, yeah, I was there. I have historic pictures of what the area used to look like and where that big station is now. There is still a station there, but it's like, just one of those little shacks that they put up down on the platform, and where this actual depot was is now just, well, I didn't go all the way down there to this time, but when I was there a couple of years ago, there was just a big hole in the ground, and they were storing construction equipment and stuff there.
Must have been really nice.
Yeah, and that whole
the
South
program
Shoreline
was
used to
great.
have, I'm talking
Yes.
about the 1890s, that it was a new middle-class neighborhood, and there were beautiful stations along there. And the one at Cheltenham,
Beverly
which was the one
Shores
that my
Boulevard.
grandfather took to go to work, it looked like a little Swiss chalet. And the station
Wow.
master and his family lived upstairs, and then the offices were downstairs. And Windsor
We-
Park had a different kind of station, but it was also a very nice little station. Now
It was
just those
really
little
nice.
shacks.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point, because there was quite a lot of beautiful architecture that got lost when
Yes.
the IT standardized everything and
Yes.
electrified.
So I see, John, you came back onto us here.
Yeah.
Did you lose your broadband
Yeah,
or
we
something?
missed you.
Oh, yeah, I did
back.
for a while.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
It was
So
an
do you
excellent
have
program.
any input
Let's see.
for the South Chicago branch?
Let's
Oh,
see.
let me
Well,
see. Before that, no. The first question was
Yeah.
211th Street Station, which I'm guessing must have been an add-on, 1977.
No. 211th was part of the original sequence.
Okay.
I'm not sure what they called it, but I think it was there right from the start of electrification.
That was a modern facility compared to the others.
Rebuilt.
And then the next station was Richton Park, which was the original terminal, right?
Not quite. It was Homewood, Flossmoor, Olympia Fields, 211th Street, Madison, and Richton.
Okay.
Great.
And then they extended from
Richton
Richton.
was added in 1945, and Park Forest South, now University Park, 1977.
When they added when in 45?
They added Richton in 1945. Richton
So it used to
Park.
end originally at Madison?
It used to end at Madison.
Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. I
Yeah,
had an opening date for University Park. I think it was November 77 or something like that.
sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay, and then the South Chicago branch is pretty much original.
Yeah,
I think they've modernized it since that, correct?
they've modernized everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't take a single one of
Be
those
really
station
astonished.
photos now.
And it was a pretty questionable neighborhood back then. I
Yeah,
think
it
right in the
hasn't got any
middle.
less questionable now, but seriously, if you want a rail fan, the inner parts of the Blue Island branch, do so with extreme caution.
Yeah,
Wow. It's good to know.
yeah, because
Particularly after finding out about what happened to Walter Zulig in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
So many American cities, you have to watch where you're going.
yeah, go with a friend, for goodness
Yes.
sake. And
yeah, and you do know that Mary Ann Schiffer, she's from South Chicago.
Oh,
She grew up at the 87th Street Station.
which is the closest station to Comiskey Park? The lights out there.
On that,
let's see. The closest would be 27th Street, but if you're trying to get to the ballpark from anywhere on Metro Electric, it's really easier to just go downtown and take the red line.
Oh, I'll just stay with the CTA.
Yeah. Now, I'm sorry I forgot to unmute myself when I came back on, but I want to point out something toward the end of the Blue Island sequence, George. You got a very good shot of one of the catenary poles with the mileage marker. I think it was something like 17.18.
mhm.
I don't know any other commuter railroad that marks its mileage to the nearest hundredth of a mile.
Mhm.
But they've got all of the catenary support structures marked that way.
Very
And
exactly.
here's something if you really want to impress your friends with the trivia that you know about the railroad. Anybody care to guess where milepost 0 is on the Illinois Central? Going
Probably the
once,
old terminal, I would guess.
Oh, Lake
No.
Michigan?
going twice? The
Okay.
answer is the middle of the Chicago River.
Oh,
Really?
So,
How do you
so
like
in fact,
that?
the bumping posts at
That's
Randolph
funny.
Street are about 15/100ths south of the middle of the river. With the result that all of the mileages you have on the Illinois Central are about 0.2 of a mile longer than has ever been the case since they stopped running freight cars and interchanging them with barges at the river.
Oh,
Now, you were
Did I-
mentioning about West Pullman Station. Did you know about the Dutch Boy plant there?
I forgot what factory it was that.
It was Dutch Boy Paints. It was the biggest
Right,
plant in the
yeah.
country.
Right,
Wow.
And they leveled it sometime in the late 1980s. They lost like 500 or 600 jobs when they closed it.
yeah,
A
And,
typical Chicago story, you know?
right.
It moved.
And by the way, the environmental remediation required there must be absolutely humongous.
It's probably still there for all we know.
Oh, God, yeah.
A red zone.
So that end of the station, the stairway was removed. Like I said, there was they'd only put one Visifare machine per station down in the Blue Island branch. They
Right.
put it at the other end. I forget what the cross street was.
Halsted Street.
What is it?
Halsted Street.
Okay, so that was evidently considered to be more important.
Right,
So for the paint plant, you had to walk around in the streets to get through
Right,
Visifare,
uh-huh.
yeah. And then they put chain link at the other stations at Blue
Right.
Island to protect the one Visifare machine they had to protect it
Wow.
right.
because
uh-huh.
everybody be just blowing in there without paying their fare.
Well, of course, part of the problem that caused them to resume ticket inspections in 1981 was that too many people were just jumping off and sometimes onto the platform.
Oh. They have a similar problem in New York now with fare evasion.
Gosh, yeah.
Riders are traveling on top of the equipment.
We can have a long conversation and even a show just about fare evasion alone.
Oh, yeah, we sure
Okay.
can.
Yeah,
Huge now in New York.
Every operation has the same problems and the same sort of, if you want to put it this way, in my opinion, the poor approach to dealing with it. Okay,
They're looking the other way.
but that's the way the world is now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so are there any more questions? Any input?
Excellent
I
program.
think pretty well.
Brought back a lot of good memories for me on my trips to
Yeah.
Chicago.
yes, very good memories. Yes.
I'll let you know if this is going to be shown anywhere else, because I'll probably get a couple of other shows. I might be somewhere else.
Great.
Okay.
See
And
if they can send me a link.
thank John, because he really adds a lot to the show. I just
Yes,
want to let him know.
thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Oh,
well, it
We'll
was
have to
fun.
make sure we send you the link for our future program.
Now you know you're going to be a member someday.
Right.
All you got to do is pay Sheldon the dues, and you'll be in.
Yeah, right. And
Right.
You're in like.
Eric has to go to Steve first.
Yeah.
Remember, we got the East
Oh, the
Rockaway
PO box
PO
is now in
box.
East Rockaway, yeah.
And don't
Excellent.
forget, he's in New Haven. He's not far away.
Oh, great.
100 miles.
So when you go back for real to the Williamson, he can actually get a train a lot easier than I can.
Beautiful.
I still can't
Well,
talk. I still can't talk them to sending a train of M8s up to South Station as a demonstration. I keep trying, but they just won't listen to me.
I'd love it if they did.
I'll have to, stay tuned on that on the return to Williamson.
The issue is like half the platforms they would use are low level platforms.
I know.
Right, that's a problem, all right.
Maybe my only way to get to Grand Central is going to be to ride on the roof of an Acela to New Haven, and up next door to Metro North or something like that.
Oh, that'll be quite a trip.
Okay. All right. So I'll see you guys
You
later.
got it, George.
Thanks,
Have a
great.
good weekend.
And I'll start with
Good
the
weekend.
again later in August. Okay.
Sunday night.
Have a good time. Good
Yeah.
night.
Yeah,
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
No.